Hello and welcome. Before we start the webinar, start the session today, please can somebody just put into the chat box whether you can hear me speaking. I'm just checking, can you hear me speaking? Okay, yes, I've just had confirmation that you can hear me. So, welcome to the 10 personality traits of entrepreneurial community organizations and the people inside them, and how to manifest your community vision. Now, the question you may be asking is, what's all this about? So let's get started. I've been fascinated by entrepreneurship, and I've been working, or we in our business have been working with people in community organizations who have wanted to step up to the next level. And we've done this through entrepreneurship. And I pin my definition of entrepreneurship on a statement by Peter Drucker. And this defines entrepreneur and entrepreneurship. The entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. And it's very positive, very powerful, and I've certainly used that in my career and in my own business. And I regularly look at, believe it or not, how boring, but policy direction, because I can see where things are going, and then I work with my clients, and then we look at putting things together, and we're actually ahead of the game, because that's what we're doing. We're looking for change, we're seeing where it's going, and we exploit it as an opportunity. So which are you? I mean, how many of you watch on and see community-minded groups making a big difference out there? And how many of you are involved with these life-changing groups? So you can feel the passion, you know the energy. And how many of you wish you were out there involved in those community-minded groups? And today we're going to reveal just exactly what that makeup of those groups are. And I'll explain more as I go along. Okay, so what brought me here today? Well, my name is Pat Gross, and I've been working solidly with not-for-profits, both large and small, in different areas such as sport, art, community development, volunteer, youth, charities, education, you name it. And we've been working with a vast array of cultures, because no two organizations are the same. And I've been working with those that have been the go-getters, those that have been taking risks, and also the balance of those very inward, conservative, insular islands, those who are ticking over, but they're not in the space to be able to kick those goals that we're trying to look at today. If you've got any comments, then please put them in the chat space so that we can answer them or respond to them as we go along. So, what am I talking about? I'm talking about these people who are the energizers. And I've been really fortunate in our business to be working with the energizers. These energizers have got an entrepreneurial mindset. And it's amazing how many of these are actually award winners. And over the last 10, 15 years, organizations I've been working with, actually many of them have gone on to win awards. So there is something in their DNA. They're inspiring. They've got stories to tell. And underneath it all, they're also well organized. So, about me. I said my name is Pat, and I've been intrigued about community and volunteer organizations right back to the 1990s, when I worked in a career that involved working with bringing together local government, education, higher education, further education, volunteer organisations, community development. I'm sure I've missed somebody, but we would bring them together and we would train them on accessing funding from the European Union and what to do with it when they got it. And I remember on one occasion, my colleague, she said that unless you had been involved in a voluntary organisation, because there's many voluntary organisations in the UK, that you wouldn't get employment in one. And that intrigued me. And then over the years, I've actually found out why, because they do. There is an energy, there is a culture, there's a way about going, there's a personality which is so different to that of businesses. And so it's working. I've had the pleasure of working with these not-for-profits for the last 17 years in one format or another. And I've begun to know the culture inside out and how it's so different from business. And I say along the way, I've actually mentored organisations and people who have gone on in their own roles to win awards. They've got the recognition they deserve. So let's start here with the 10 personality traits of entrepreneurial community organisations and the people inside them. Let's start with number 1. Now, these are not necessarily in any order, except that when I do get to slide 10 or trait 10, I would recommend that that one is the most important trait of all. But let's start at number 1 here. And that's the one of having an entrepreneurial mindset. Remember, looking for change and taking advantage of opportunities. But in order to be in that position, you need to have a clear vision and goals. Your organization needs to know where it's going. If it doesn't have a direction and if it's not clear and it doesn't have its goals, it's aimless. It's going nowhere. It's just going everywhere. So that's, one of those keys. There's got to be a plan in place. And the organization thinks big, B-I-G. It's okay living in mediocrity, but in order to get that dream, that vision, then you really need to be looking outward and looking towards your vision, and therefore you are actually looking at something big. If you think small, then that's exactly what you get. And one of those traits is to overcome fear. And that's part of what holds an organization back. Because it could be that you're working within some tight constraints, or you've tried something in the past and it hasn't worked. And we'll talk about that later. But fear is false expectations appearing real. So if it's happened before, unless the circumstances are exactly duplicate, there's every possibility that it's not going to have the same result. So it's a false expectation. So if you get over that, if you overcome the fear factor of taking the next step as an organization and stop holding yourselves back, then that's the first thing that we work with when we're mentoring the people within the organizations. We mentor individuals and we mentor the organization, the committee. And one of the first things we look at holistically is looking at the mindset, because if you're not in that mindset, then there's no point in going any further. So the second trait, as I would say, is that the entrepreneurial organizations actually have the confidence to take risks. They're ready for change. They can see the innovation that's needed. And it does help sometimes, when you're applying for funding, because funding actually encourages people, encourages organizations to take risks, to do things differently, to innovate. And if you're innovating, you're actually taking some risks because you're changing something. And if you're prepared to take risks, then you're more likely to achieve the success than if you don't. It's as simple as that. The third is that threats become opportunities. And I can give you a good couple of examples here. For instance, so I'm working with a client at the moment, and recently they had in their town there was a strike, and that strike was with the one employer that if that employer decided to leave would have a catastrophic effect on the economy. So that was a threat, and it's still a threat now, even though the situation's been resolved, because it became clear that that was a huge risk. So this organisation has seen that, and now is looking at opportunity of looking at the different businesses, the different business areas in town, and is now looking to connect and to find opportunities to grow employment in alternative in alternative areas, so that if ideally in the future, if a situation was to arise again, that wouldn't be really good if it didn't have the same effect that it would if that particular business were to close down today. So that's an example of they saw the threat, and that threat to them became an opportunity to look in a different direction. That's an example of communities in economic downturn. And there's another one here. For instance, the threat of bushfires. So which particularly in 2003, 2006, 2009, and then in certain areas in 2014. This is in Victoria alone. But after the 2009 bushfires, the year later, one of those communities that was hit looked around and thought, well, if this was to happen again, we want to be ready for it this time. So they got together, they put together a project and started to work with the women in the community with the idea that if there was to be some kind of a disaster, it could be bushfire, it could be flood, that there would be more proactive engagement and feeling more ownership in a situation such as that. So they saw that threat and it became an opportunity. So that's an example of looking out there and seeing and not being negative about anything, but actually turning it around and making it an opportunity for the community. Number 4, these organizations dare to be different. They stand out. Because if you do what you've always done, you get what you always got. So they actually sorry about that. If you get what if you do what you've always done, you get what you've always got. So it's important to stand out from the crowd. I've seen organizations do that. They look around and they think, well, if we're doing the same thing, it's not going to work. And one of the ways that we demonstrate this is looking in a strategic plan. And I can look at somebody's strategic plan and I can see whether that organisation is actually doing something constructive with their community. And if they're not, then if it's not visible, then I know. But if I look into somebody's strategic plan and they're doing something different, they've done their research, they've found a need, and they're doing something that they've not actually physically done before, then I can see that they're actually doing something. They're daring to be different. And it could be that you might actually be part of a network of similar organizations. And the ones that stand out are the ones who are different. They dare to be different. Right, okay, so let's have a look at number 5. And number 5 is they're not afraid to fail. In fact, when you do take risks, when you do take chances, then there is the opportunity there for there is a chance that not everything is going to work the way that you wanted it to work. There's no such thing as a failure. It just means it didn't work the way you wanted it to, and you can learn from it. But if you are going to fail, it's best to do it, fail fast and move on. And entrepreneurial organizations readjust the flight plan and they take failure in their stride. They're like phoenix from the ashes. I've seen organizations on near closure and they've had that energy inside them that let's start again, let's get out there, and they've become phoenixes rising out of the ashes. So I've seen some organizations that have not been able to, they're being funded to do something, they're not being able to do it on a recurring basis. So they've actually taken the opportunity to say, no, we're not going to do this and we're going to move on. They've readjusted their flight plan. Okay, so let's have a look at number 6. And number 6 is they think and they dream creatively. All good ideas come from a vision. And it's new and it's exciting. And these organizations are dreamers. When the world says no, they swim against the mainstream because they're doing something different. They're dreaming. Their dreams become reality. And if it weren't for the dreamers of this world, we wouldn't have the technology that we have today because somebody had to dream it. A thought becomes an idea. It's dreamed. It's dreamt. And when we work with our grant writing clients, for example, they come to us with an idea, a vision, a dream. And sometimes it's not very clear and we have the conversation and then it's up to me to try and put some framework around it. Then we put something together, it becomes tangible, they get funded and off they go and they're making that dream come true. But it was their thoughts in the first place that led to this. Okay, so let's have a look at number 7 and entrepreneurial community organizations make connections. Now, entrepreneur comes from the word entreprendre, which means a go-between. And they're change agents. A good entrepreneurial organization is change. They've got drive, they've got positive energy, they network with other entrepreneurs, and they manifest change. They may become politically savvy, but that's because they make the effort. They create, they manifest partnerships. These things happen because there's somebody, these organizations are out there making it happen. Number 8 is they're intuitive organizations. Now, what I mean by that is that they whatever you focus on grows, and if they're out there and they start and they're successful, success generates success. It's like a magnet. In some terms, if you look up the law of attraction, whatever you focus on grows. They're not stuck in the mire, and they're therefore that mire is not there, it's non-existent for them. So they're actually out there, and people see them as being lucky. And there could be a little bit of a jealousy factor here, because they're looking on and going, how come these guys are so lucky? But they're not so lucky. They don't know that behind all that there's a lot of effort. But they've created something. They've created systems. They've created people. They've created culture. They've created something that then starts to intuitively, they attract success. Number 9 is they are leaders. They have a strong sense of justice. There's a definiteness of decisions and plans, and they're willing to assume responsibility. People look to them with respect. These leaders have identified their unique proposition, what it is about them as an organization that people will recognize, and they've got credibility. Because they're willing to go out there and they're willing to take the lead, they're willing to take the risks, and they're willing to take the chances. Now, this is the biggie. A truly entrepreneurial community organization is bigger than the individuals inside them. And I have been working with organizations that have been driven. There is an internal driver, but that driver is not just people. It could be your systems, it could be your culture, values, mission, strategic plan. But when that internal driver is a person, and that person hasn't put in other the support around them, embedded in the organization, when they walk away for whatever reason, those organizations tend to lose the entrepreneurial spirit because it's not been embedded. And so often, and this is why I work with people, is that it's not about them. It's about their service, and it's about their embedding a new way, a new philosophy, a new way of doing things in their organization. So it's bigger than the individual or the individual person who maybe their passion. If they leave, the passion leaves, a new person comes in, and if their support structures in that organization are not focused and driving, then they're going to drive in a completely different direction depending on their own personality and skills. To be bigger than the individual, entrepreneurship must be embedded within the vision, within the mission, within the culture, within the strategic plan, within the policies and procedures, and within the values of the organization. Entrepreneurship should be a primary value of the organization, because then it means that people within those organizations would be supporting the entrepreneurship value. So what does this mean then for manifesting the community vision? What are those 10 steps? Well, we explore these in our mentoring program, but here we go. One is to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset. So that's what we do. We work with people to have a look at their mindset, to be more outward looking, to be more risk taking. And I don't mean reckless risk. I mean the fact that you can actually get out there and do something innovative, and you've got the support systems in place. Number 2 is to engage with a strong vision. Again, if you don't know where you're going, you haven't got the direction, and you're going everywhere, then that's a reckless entrepreneur. What we're looking for is following a strong vision of the organization. Be prepared to take risks. So we work with, and we talk about those risks, and we work around those risks. Be the phoenix. Remember, coming out of the ashes. And that's something you probably would need to be prepared to do if there is something around there, something that needs a crisis. If you probably need to be out there and being prepared to rise above. Dare to be different, and dare to step out of the norm and to look at things differently. And when you start to look at things differently, new opportunities come your way. If you're going to fail fast and move on. And that's one of the things we teach people. Yes, there are lessons to be learnt, but don't get stuck in the past. Just move on. The networking, the entrepreneur, and we actually do a bit of focus on there, because it's not just networking to be a leader, but it's also networking to improve where you are in your status and your and the individual mindset. Because if you are the value of the total value of the 5 people that you most closely network with, it's interesting to see who those network people are and how that impacts on you and the organization. We talk about getting in the zone. You need to get in the zone. Once you're in the zone, you become lucky. And when I say swim downstream, is you just go with the flow. Another way, in number 9, is to be the leader. Look at the opportunities in your community to shine, to be the leader. and then embed entrepreneurship in the organization. So those are 10 steps to manifesting your community vision. I hope I've given you some valuable insights. And what I'm saying now is, imagine what an entrepreneurial mindset could mean for your organization or your community. What does it look like? What are people saying about your achievements? And how do you feel? Can you just imagine how that would be? So, are you ready to change the world? If you bear with me, I'll give you some more information, please, with your permission, more information about our entrepreneurial mindset, our entrepreneurial thinking program, because it does get results. And if you're looking for results and you're looking for some support and you're looking for some guidance, then this is for you. So this is what you get. We actually do this in 6-month blocks, because we look at what's your driver, what's your main goals, what are the blockages, what is it that you want to achieve. And if you tell us at the beginning, and we'll work on your plan together. And we do that through entrepreneurialism, through educational content, from looking at successful entrepreneurs and looking at the way they do things, and so the education content, and just applying some of that education to the way that you do things, and it does work. We do 6 monthly motivational calls to keep you on perspective and on track. So we certainly keep you motivated, and it's so easy to get busy and not do things and put the blockers in place. So we put in place regular accountability. So if you're committed, you owe it to yourself to keep focused with our help. Now, Brian Tracy, a speaker, said 90 to 95% of people will withdraw to their comfort zone when what they try doesn't work. And this is what happens with community organizations as well. If it doesn't work, they'll go back to their comfort zone. But only the small percentage, 5 or 10%, will continue to improve themselves. They will continually push themselves into the zone of discomfort, and these are always the highest performers in every field. And that's what we want to do. We want to take that 5 or 10% and take them to the next level. So this program is for you. It's not for you. It's not for everybody, shall I say, but it is for you if you feel that you're in that 5 to 10%. You're committed, and you're prepared to change your perspective, because it could get uncomfortable. If you're focused, you're hungry and driven, and you've got that goal in mind, and you get satisfaction from results. If this is you, then this program is for you. Here's a couple of clients, just to give you an idea. Now Kate, for example, her organization sort of was stuck, couldn't move forward, and felt that they didn't actually weren't able to communicate very well with outside stakeholders, and local government here is an example. And they were looking for a centre, a new facility for quite some time, and they were just getting doors closed on them. So working with this organisation, we looked at entrepreneurs and how they and their mindset and how they do things. And then Kay actually followed some of this content, and very quickly they actually managed to get what they needed, but they also developed relationships with these stakeholders that they were not having much joy with before, and local government is one of them. So they learned the language of working with their various stakeholders and networking. Now, Jill, on the other hand, again, their organization was going out there. They were taking a leadership role, but they found that inside the organization, not everybody was on the same page. As I said, she's sells more entrepreneurial, which was great. And you can't stagnate. You have to get out there. But she also, which is not here, which is important, was just mentioning, is that she found that to take the personality out of problems. And this is something, going back to what I was saying about my fascination all those years ago with community and volunteer organizations, they're so different because of the way the personalities work in community organizations as opposed to business and structures. So in this example, we were able to look at, the inside of an organization as opposed to the outside, and to address some of those barriers that then enabled the organization to move forward with outside organizations. Okay, so if you're ready for this, if you want to step up the mark and create the change your community deserves, then we are offering you today a confidential 30-minute exploratory consult. And what you do is you go to this URL, https://tinyurl.com/TCE booking, or you go to the communityentrepreneur.com website, and if you go through the drop down menu, you'll find the opportunity to book an appointment to speak to me or to Karen, and we can have that conversation with you to explore you and your organization and where you want to go and how we might be able to help you to get there. But if you're not ready, you're not sure, then again, hop onto our website, thecommunityentrepreneur.com, and look at your complimentary your entrepreneurial thinking. There's a book on there. It's actually a self-audit guide. It's going through those 10 steps, and it's asking those questions within those 10 steps. So if you want to, you can do a self-audit, and then when you've done the self-audit, then just come and make an appointment, and we can take you to the next level. So again, tinyurl.com TCE booking. Thank you for letting us be part of your journey, and we look forward to working with you in the future. Thank you.